I'm Stephen Fine here for What You're Wondering. I'm an infectious diseases and HIV specialist, and I've done vaccine research in the past. I've been following the COVID-19 vaccine development story closely, and now that 2 COVID-19 vaccines have been authorized by the FDA for emergency use, I'm getting lots of questions from HIV patients who wonder if they should get the vaccine. First, let me say this. Any treatment or prevention is going to have some benefits and some risk. Once you understand how these vaccines are made and how they work and see the protection they offer, you'll probably agree with me that the benefits far outweigh the risks for these shots. First, I'll explain the vaccines and tell you the results from the trials in the general population. Then I'll get to the information specifically about people with HIV. Although there's not too much about HIV in these trials, there is some useful information from these studies. First off, there are now 2 COVID-19 vaccines that have been approved by the FDA for emergency use. These were developed and tested in record time. This does not mean that the studies were shortchanged on safety or not fully reviewed. What it means is the process was sound, everything was done, it was just done more quickly. Both Moderna and Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines are made of messenger RNA. This is called mRNA vaccine. There are at least 8 other mRNA vaccines that have been tested in humans over the past few years, but none of them have ever been such a large scale. No safety issues came up from any of those past tests either. Remember from biology that mRNA carries the blueprint for making a protein into the cell cytoplasm. The vaccine mRNA is covered with tiny fat particles to protect it and help it get into the cell. Once there, it becomes one of the thousands of other mRNAs making proteins. It only lasts a short time, then it's gone for good. It doesn't go to the nucleus of the cell or get into the DNA. During that short time, while it's there, it codes for a single protein called the spike protein, which normally is on the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's the virus that causes COVID-19. Once the cells take in the vaccine messenger RNA, they start making the spike protein and bring it to the surface where your immune system cells, such as the T and B cells, see it and say, hey, that doesn't belong here. They then go ahead and make antibodies and rev up your immune system to fight. Once the spike protein is gone, they then roam around just waiting for the real coronavirus to try to get in, and then they kill it before it infects you. So how does it work? Here's the data that went to the FDA. For Pfizer, 22,000 random volunteers got placebo, which is no vaccine, and 22,000 random volunteers got the vaccine. In the placebo group, there were 162 cases of COVID-19 infection. But in the vaccine group, there were only 8. So that is a 20 times less likely to get COVID-19 if you got the vaccine. For the Moderna vaccine, the numbers were very similar. There were 14,000 placebo and 14,000 vaccine recipients. In the placebo group, there were 182 infections and only 11 in the vaccinated group. Thus, the vaccinees were 17 times less likely to get COVID than the placebo. Remember, these 2 trials were conducted differently, so you can't compare one to the other. It's important to realize they were both very effective. Of the 19 people who were vaccinated and still got COVID-19 in the trials, none of them showed severe symptoms. What about side effects? Well, side effects were very similar in both groups, so I'm lumping them together here. Up to 80% of people who got the vaccine reported pain in the arm where they got the shot. Nearly all were mild or moderate, lasting 2 to 3 days. This was my experience when I received the Pfizer vaccine 3 weeks ago. About 1/4 of all people reported fatigue, muscle aches, some headache, and joint pain or chills. Again, for reactions that required a visit to the doctor, there were no differences between the vaccine and the placebo group. In the Moderna trial, there was one case of a severe immediate allergic reaction called anaphylaxis in the placebo group and one in the vaccine group, so no real difference between the 2. And there was 1 death in each group but it was felt to be not related to the vaccine. In the Pfizer vaccine, there have been a few reports of severe immediate reactions called anaphylaxis, now that hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers have been getting the vaccine. And these are under investigation, but so far don't appear to be a reason to avoid getting it. What about people with HIV? Well, thanks to the hard work of HIV activists, people with HIV who were stable on medication were included in both of these vaccine trials. In the Pfizer trial, there were 120 patients with HIV who did receive the vaccine, and they had no more severe side effects than the general population. There were too few to say if the vaccine was as protective as in the general population, however. In the Moderna trial, 92 people with HIV received the vaccine and 87 got placebo. Once again, they saw no difference in side effects, and although one person who was HIV infected got COVID-19, they were in the placebo group. So again, there were too few people with HIV to say whether the vaccine was just as effective as in the general population. Where will people with HIV be on the priority list to get vaccinated? This is going to differ by country and by state, so I recommend watching your local news. Right now, most groups are recommending that if you're HIV positive and have a CD4 count less than 50, or if your CD4 count's between 50 and 200, and you've had a recent HIV-related condition, you should be in a very early group. For everyone else, it's going to vary by location, so again, keep your ears open, watch the news, ask your doctor, and look for vaccine in the community, which may be sooner than you think. If you're HIV positive, I recommend that you take either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine as soon as it's available in your community, because they can decrease your risk of getting COVID-19 17 to 20-fold, and not only are they theoretically safe, they've been shown to have only mild side effects and are very safe during the extensive testing that's been done. There are other vaccines coming, and once they appear, we'll have to take a look at those, but right now the data is not public. So, all right, good luck, and please send in your questions.